Have you started a new leadership role, but you still find it difficult to voice your opinions or ask for what you need or want? Do you find it difficult to hold your team members accountable and also ask stakeholders to provide certain actions? Then this video is for you. Today, I will share with you key tips on how you can become more assertive as an emerging leader. Hi, I'm Anne Koopman, and I'm a former engineer and senior leader in the manufacturing industry. And now I work as a leadership coach and an expert for team development. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel now so you don't miss out on my future videos all around leadership and team development tips. So today we're going to talk about assertive communication, which is something that a lot of leaders come to me with. And how can I make sure that my points are being heard? How can I make sure that my ideas are not being shut down? Or how can I make sure that my team actually stays accountable for their actions? And so today I want to share with you 6 tips to become more assertive in your communication. Before we start with these 6 tips though, it's important that we talk about what is assertive communication, why it is so important, and also make a bit of a distinction between assertive communication, aggressive communication, and passive communication. What is assertive communication? In their research, Daniel Amos and others have defined that assertive communication means that we have to be able to stick to our opinion in situations where we're interdependent of other people or stakeholders. What does that mean? That means that we're able to actually stick to what we want and voice our opinion and our thoughts, even if there are other people in the room that might have a different goal or different agenda. So this doesn't mean that we will always get our way, but what it means is that we are able to clearly communicate our opinion and what we need and want, or our emotions in a situation, and that we can clearly communicate what we need out of this, and then from there start to have a negotiation with others. But we're not just overrun by people that are more dominant or louder than us, that are just shutting us down before we even had a chance to talk. So this could look like that you have an urgent need for a report to be finished and you share that with your team members, but they might feel already really stressed and overwhelmed with their other workload. And so in this communication, they have a different agenda and objective than you have, and it's important that you find a way to state clearly what you need from them and figure out a solution together. It could also mean that you work with other stakeholders, so let's say other managers in your organization, and you have to get them on board and influence them to join your new initiative. But they might have other initiatives and objectives on their agenda that they get pressure from the top. So when you start to speak up and you're not assertive enough, they might shut you down straight away and push their points and their agenda points. So why is assertive communication so important? It's important so that you can hold your boundaries, that you can provide feedback, and that you get more successful in stating what you need and getting people to come on board. If assertive communication is done well, it also fosters mutual trust and a good working relationship going forward. Your team will also build stronger relationships with you and bigger trust because they will start to learn that they can rely on you. And so your message becomes clear and there's no confusion in what you're saying, which could lead to frustration. So what's the difference between passive, assertive, and aggressive communication? Passive communication means just that we are quite passive in the way that we communicate. So this might mean that we have a default reaction of being quiet, of not saying what we want to say, of kind of putting our needs on the back burner and prioritizing the needs of others. So it means that we're indirect, we're beating around the bush, we're not honest of what we need. And so we're actually putting ourselves last and we don't achieve what we need to achieve as a leader. If we're an aggressive communicator, it means that we're so dominant that we don't even pay any attention to what the other person needs of us. So the outcome will be driven based on fear or lots of stress and pressure. And so people might say yes to what you want, but they will not naturally respect you for it, and they might become resentful afterwards. This communication can get quite emotionally very quickly, which then means that everyone gets into a defensive position and a proper communication, negotiation, conversation, or discussion is actually not possible anymore. And then just the loudest person, the most aggressive person in the room wins, and this is not a productive and effective working environment. So assertive communication kind of sits in the middle of that. Assertive communication means that you're clear and precise in your message and clearly communicate on what you want and what you need. So you're putting your needs at the priority when you enter the conversation, but at the same time, you're staying open to listen, to use your empathy, and to starting to see also what are the other people's needs and what do they want and need to achieve. What are their emotions? So assertive communication means you're being clear, but you're not overrunning others or suppressing what they need and what they want. So this becomes a very effective way of communicating together. Everyone gets to state what they need, and then you can come together to come to a conclusion. Don't worry, assertive communication might feel quite difficult at the start, and it's something that we can all learn. Most leaders, like you, when they start out, they might find this part quite difficult and tricky. We don't want to be seen as we are not listening to others or we're not respecting the senior people in the organization. We don't want to annoy people or make them upset, and we're a bit worried about what they might think of us or their emotional reactions when we speak about something that is maybe a little bit tricky or uncomfortable. And sometimes the feeling like an imposter might make it impossible for us to actually state what we want because we're questioning ourselves and our way of thinking, and we think that we don't even have what it takes, so we shouldn't even speak up. Don't worry, you can learn this, and it's all about practicing little steps at the time to become more assertive and learn that you can actually do it. Assertive people know that they are not responsible for how other people react and their emotional reactions and behaviors. You are responsible, though, for what you say, how you say it, when you say it, and your body language and your emotional state as you say it. So this is something that we need to work on to become more assertive. Once you've prepared yourself and you stated something in a clear way like that, then you can release the pressure on yourself to being responsible for how other people react. That's on them, that's their choice. So now let's look at the 6 tips of how you can become more assertive in your communication as an emerging leader. Number 1. Don't wait. If you have something to say, if you have something to share, if you need a commitment or an outcome from someone on your team or another stakeholder, bring it up as soon as you can. Sometimes we wait for things to just go away magically and magically disappear, but that's not going to happen. You have to speak up, and you really have to bring points up when you need the support. Tip number 2 is all about being clear on your message. This means being clear about what is the issue that you want to address, what's the purpose of this conversation, and also what's your desired outcome. There could be a few different types of assertive communication, assertive conversations that you need to have. It could be that you have to disclose some difficult information that might be upsetting to some people, that might be changing the lives or the work lives of some people. It could be that you have some feedback that you need to share. It could be that you have to negotiate and influence others to join your cause or your project, and you need to get the buy-in. And it can also be that you need to resolve some conflict. For example, where you have to look at 2 parties or you with another party where there has been some conflict and you want to make sure that you address it and resolve it. Depending on what kind of conversation it is, you can then start to think about what's my clear objective here, what's my desired outcome, and how is this going to look like. From there, you can define your clear message. No fluff, no added information, just really come to the point. What is it that you need? When you think about this, also make sure that you don't use any blame, shame, or any accusation, because if you do that, the other person will directly feel like they have to defend themselves. They will get emotional, and then you won't have a constructive conversation. You can also practice using I messages. So when you talk about something that has happened or something that made you feel a certain way, instead of saying, I feel like you are not listening to me, you can say that I feel upset because I have the feeling that my ideas are not being heard. This is a slight different way of saying it, but you're not directly accusing someone and you're not putting judgment on the behaviors that you're seeing. Because don't forget that we also make up our own assumptions and our own judgment based on people's behaviors, depending on how we feel, what we've learned, what we experienced in the past. So you want to stay as objective as possible, but you can state your feelings and how certain actions have made you feel, because that's your truth. Tip number 3 is to practice it out loud. If you have something to say, spend some time the day before, the weeks before, to say it out loud to yourself as often as you can. You want to make sure that your message is short, precise, straightforward, to the point. No fluff, not talking around the issue, not making it, softening the blow, because all of that can confuse your message and make it even harder for the other person to understand what you really want. So saying it out loud will help you to, first of all, listen to it out loud and then make adjustments if need be, but also it will help you to then feel confident when you actually say it. If we've never said it out loud and then we sit in a difficult conversation, we start to be a bit frozen and our emotions take over, and then we might be, rambling on and saying way too much. A lot of my clients come to me like, I always say way too much when I feel a bit nervous. And so we want to make sure that we practice your key message as a lead into your conversation. I often use my time driving in the car to say things like that out loud. It really helps me to feel more confident hearing my voice say these things, and it helps me to become clear on my message. And here you can also practice your stance. Like, how do you want to stand? How do you want to have your hands? What do you want to do? So that your body gets used to having a confident posture to bring your message across. Because also, if we don't practice that, we will walk into the meeting with our shoulders down here. We might hide behind a chair or behind a desk or behind a plant, and then we won't actually be there confident and bring our message across. You want to make sure that you are being heard. So practice. Number 4 is self-regulation. You want to make sure that you have your emotions in check. If you're feeling too nervous, angry, anxious, scared, you won't be able to bring your message across clearly. You want to make sure that you talk in a calm and steady voice and not in an emotionally charged way. Staying emotionally calm will keep the conversation in a productive way and make sure that nobody gets too defensive too quickly. There's 2 reasons for that. If you are not calm yourself, then you will change the way you talk, you will change your body language, and you will change the way that you actually speak. This might be then coming across as offensive and as blaming and shaming the other person, which then will lead to an emotional reaction for them. And they might jump into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and then they might not be able to respond productively and really listening to what you're saying because they're jumping straight into trying to defend themselves. And secondly, you want to help yourself, because if you get into fight, flight, or freeze mode, you are also not able to access the rational part of your brain, which will make it really hard to stick to your point and also react rationally to what other people have to say. To regulate your emotions, some tips are to sleep on it, go for a walk, not addressing an issue straight away in that moment when you feel like you're emotionally charged, making sure that you give yourself some time to calm down. It's also good to do some breathing exercises before you go into the conversation and practicing to stand up really tall and giving yourself some time to really set your intentions for that conversation. Number 5 is watch your body language. And I know I hinted at it before when we practice our message that we also already want to practice our body language. But so often we don't pay attention to it. And especially if you are someone that struggles to stick to your point because you feel self-conscious or you don't feel as confident talking to senior leaders in your organization, then you might actually start to make yourself a bit small. And this will not provide the message in combination with your words that you're saying that you are sure of what you need. You want to come across as confident, clear, and sure about what it is that you want to achieve in this meeting. If you are insecure like this, it's too easy for the other party to just dismiss what you've said. But if you stand there strong, if you practice your body language, if you're not threatening in any kind of way that you're standing above someone, if you're going on the same eye level, if you're making sure that you sit upright and staying open and not like this, then you can make sure that people will start to see that your body language matches your message, which will have a bigger impact and actually amplify your message. And it will make sure that you're not being misunderstood based on your body language and body signals. Number 6 is about mutual respect and listening. Once you've stated your point clearly, concisely, straightforward, to the point, no fluff, not talking around and rambling on, it's time for them to react and for them to share their thoughts. And here it's important that you really create that space for them to also share what are their needs, what are their pressures that are going on at the moment, what are their priorities, and then listen, tuning into your empathy and really starting to understand where they are coming from. And then from there, you can find a solution together. This does not mean that everyone will get their way all the time, but it means that you stated clearly what you needed and why you needed it. And then the other person also gets to react and you can find a common solution together. These were my 6 tips on how to be more assertive as an emerging leader. And I also provided you some really important information around what is assertive communication, why this is so important, and also what is the difference between passive aggressive and assertive communication. As a little summary, the 6 tips are: don't wait, address issues as they come up, become clear around your message and the desired outcome, practice, 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 self-regulation, watching your body language, and mutual respect and listening. Let me know if you have any other comments or which tip you found most helpful or interesting. Put it in the comments below, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I see you very soon.